Honestly, I wasn't expecting some big changes to the broken Warframe. In my first impression video, I did say that it would only require a little tweak to make this frame good. Just an increase in casting speed, a little bit more synergy on the abilities, a more defined survivability, and removing vast untime's energy drain would be enough. All of these things have been addressed on the latest tweak on this frame, and Digital Extremes added more improvements which made them broken in a good way. Before we get into the build section of this guide, let's discuss first the big changes in Xaku's abilities. First of all, Digital Extremes address their survivability issue by giving a simple tweak on the area of effect damage mitigation mechanic. Honestly, it would be nice if it's just a plain damage reduction, since I don't trust dodge chance as a form of survivability especially in high-level content, but I won't argue with this since damage reduction is very common, and any form of new survivability would be interesting. Just don't see it as a mean to survive heavy hits while standing still though. Dodge chance is better used as a safety net, and with 75% damage reduction from area of effect attacks when vast untime is active, this will allow you some room to make mistakes while playing this broken frame. Like I've said, think of these as safety nets and not a surefire way of making this frame a tank. Moving on, the developer also changed void damage because of the broken Warframe. From now on, void damage will be a true neutral damage type, which means it will have no negative effect while using it on all damage mitigation factors in the game. This means it will not be ineffective against cloned flesh and fossilized armor, which translates to a more reliable source of damage against almost all factions in the game. Xatu's Whisper will not only be great against sentients, but also against other factions, but still, it won't affect amalgams, eidolons, and certain bosses in the game. I don't know if you already tried this, but Xatu's Whisper right now has an insane interaction with the Corpus Shotgun Exegus. I tried it with several projectile weapons, but it only works for this Corpus Shotgun. So, the interaction is when you have Xatu's Whisper active. Not only that, Exegus receives the void damage buff, but it somehow gains insane damage when you shot enemies in their body. What this does is form something like Mag's Magnetize, and it somehow amplifies the projectile damage of the Exegus. The damage is so insane that it can somehow obliterate a crowd group together in a few seconds. Digital Extremes did not mention anything about this, so I'm guessing that this is only a bug that will be fixed on the next update. Anyway, this interaction may sound interesting, but this is not the most enticing part of the huge buff that was made on the broken Warframe. One of the biggest buff that this frame received is on their third sub-ability called Deny. The ability was literally a meme at launch as it appears to be a damaging ability, but it turns out to be something that floats enemies in reality. The damage wasn't that good, but because of void damage turning into true neutral, plus the change wherein it now has a damage multiplier, Deny can do massive damage to enemies, especially if you strip all their defenses away with the help of your Gaze sub-ability. The best part is, the number of weapons orbiting Xaku from Grasp of Lock will decide how much damage multiplier Deny's Void Beam will have, and take note that Digital Extremes did buff the range of this frame's second ability. With high amount of range, you can strip enemies with their weapons, and then use it to kill enemies, and increase the damage of your Deny's Void Beam at the same time. By the way, Grasp of Lock speed at which enemies are disarmed was also increased, so that it occurs earlier in the casting animation, which also increases the casting animation speed overall. And to make matters even better, this ability can now be recast at any time. The next big buff is obviously on this frame's ultimate ability. The vast untime now has no energy drain, and the duration of this ability will freeze the timer of your other abilities. This only means that Xaku is very energy efficient right now, that you can add Blind Rage on your build without worrying of large energy consumption. This change made Xaku a better frame overall, since it allows players to enjoy the benefit of their other abilities, without investing in a caster frame build. Instead, you could focus on high strength and high range build, which in my opinion, is the perfect build for Xaku at the moment. A normal broken frame doesn't need any subsumed ability. To be honest, when you know the fact that Xatu's Whisper has an insane interaction with Exegus right now, and you can use all of their abilities to the fullest, without worrying about energy drain and dying of one shot. By the way, for those who are saying that Gaze is the worst defensive stripping mechanic in the game, then let me enlighten you for a bit. While it's true that Gaze isn't as efficient as the likes of Seeking Shuriken, Pillage, or any other defense stripping method, this ability does the job well when you pair it with Xaku's other abilities. The high range of Grasp of Lock allows you to disarm a lot of enemies, making them use melee, which you can use as a tactical advantage to place gaze in a specific spot wherein enemies will pass. Also, the fact that there are methods outside of subsumed abilities to pull targets on a spot makes this a very good armor and shield stripping ability. You can use either Magus Anomaly, or Zenuric's Void Singularity to pull enemies near the gaze target and strip their defenses. This will make them vulnerable to your void weapons, including those weapons you stole from enemies after casting Grasp of Lock. And mind you, these void entities will shoot enemies even if you are out from your frame, and using the operator's void mode. So basically, Zenuric and Xaku is a great combo that everyone must try right now. The build I was using for the original Xaku was only this. It's not even min max, as I did add specific polarities to fit in some augment mods for the Helminth version of Xaku. But as you can see earlier, this frame was melting high level enemies easily, and I was able to survive just by using this frame's ultimate ability and crowd control. You will have tons of fun already with this frame with the normal version, but I know there are guys out there who would want to know if we can improve this frame with the Helminth system. Well, obviously the answer to that is yes. I did try a couple of suggestions, and one of these is equipping muzzle flash shooting gallery on this frame. While it works, I find shooting gallery not that great since it contradicts with what we want to do, and that is strip enemy of their weapon, leave them to gaze, and obliterate them with our void weapons. Giving Xaku shooting gallery isn't that good at the moment, since it will stun lock armed enemies for the whole period that the ability is active, and most likely, we will need to build a caster mod setup for this to work. It can work, but don't like this type of playstyle for this frame since I would need to recast gaze over and over again. It's just a personal preference and you can try it if you want. What I highly recommend, other than not equipping any subsumed abilities on this frame, is to try either a Tesla Bank variation, or a conductor build setup on this frame. Tesla Bank from Vauban is very good with this frame since it combos well with both Grasp of Lock and Gaze. The damage that a Tesla Nervos acquire while sticking on an enemy will be very high since we have those void entities constantly dishing void damage to enemies. And, Gaze makes it worst, as it will allow to insta-kill a tight group of enemies in an instant once the Nervos explode after a target dies. This is basically good for long endurance runs while camping in one spot. But if you want to freely roam the map, then I highly advise slapping Octavia's Resonator on this broken Warframe. The Conductor Augment allows you to command the Resonator to move and stay in one spot. And with the high range we got on this build, it can hard CC enemies, and you can actually lure them to a gaze target. Just a quick note, I did end up removing a portion of stretch to min max this build. Otherwise, I would have included another former on this Exilus mod slot. If you have the resources, then you can add another former on this build, to have the max range value for stretch. Just don't put Umbral former though, as it would be a waste for this frame. Conductor Xaku is by far the most fun I have with this frame. It completes this frame since it adds survivability in the form of crowd control, and as well as tactical advantage since you can place the Resonator to places wherein you can achieve the maximum damage of your Grasp of Lock. The problem though is you would sacrifice Xata's Whisper in the process, and take away that insane interaction with Exagus. But who needs something that is clearly a bug and would be patched in the next update, when you can use all of your other abilities to the full extent? It's a good trade-off, and I highly suggest that you try it for yourself. So this is the end of this video. I hope that you find it informative and entertaining. Thank you so much for watching. Squad Leader signing off.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.